Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so before we start with the lecture, actually I want to let you know about your test one. Okay, so test one. Okay, so we should do it in week 7. I think Friday, week 7, 8 to 10 a.m. should be okay. Any bangkangan? So week 7, Friday is 26 November. So the topic will be ODE based model. Only one question. But if you refer to assignment 2, assignment 2A and assignment 2B, then the question will be something similar with the assignment. Okay. So I think you can start doing the assignment 2A and 2B because yesterday's lecture is actually enough already for doing assignment 2A and 2B. Okay, so test one will be 20%, and what I did usually in previous semester. So for test, usually it's 1 hour 45 minutes and 15 minutes to submit. Okay. So if you ask your friends that have taken this subject, if you submit after the 15 minutes, so every 1 minute will deduct one mark. Okay. So yang ni tak main-main lah, yang deduct 1 mark ni memang deduct betul-betul. Okay, so if because this is open book test, so boleh discuss semua sekali lah nak buat apa, saya tak tahu, saya tak nampak. Okay, so I hope you can follow the rules lah, okay, to avoid your test mark being deducted. Okay. Okay, so this for your test 1. Okay, any question before we start with the lecture? Okay, so let's continue with our lecture. So yesterday we have learned about how to write ODE-based model using MATLAB code, okay, to solve ODE-based model using MATLAB. So today we will continue on looking at various example of ODE model in biomechanics, and we will try to use MATLAB and solve the model. Okay, so in this lecture, there will be 3 types of model that are common, and also quite simple to show the examples, how to code. Okay, so the first one is Winkel-cell model. Second one is model for chemical reactions. And lastly, modeling of neural activation. So we will look at what are these model and what are their purpose, and we will try to write the codes. Okay. Okay, so we start with Winkel-cell model. So Winkel-cell model is actually proposed by Otto Frank, a German physiologist. So dia ni macam like a doctor lah. But he used a model to describe blood flow in the artery. So blood flow in the artery, if you look at your body, there are so many blood vessels. You have the heart, you have the blood vessels supplying blood to all the organs like brain, lungs, and so on. So to model this blood flow in our body is not easy. I mean, you cannot use like CFD to model blood flow in the whole body because it will take so many computer power to solve the model. So instead of using CFD, so autophagy basically describe the blood flow in the body by using electrical components. So if you still remember EET, subject Electrical, Electronics and Technology, subjek yang tak tahu berapa orang dapat A dekat UMP. So basically blood flow can be represented by using electrical circuits. Okay. So for example, we can use resistor to represent blood flow resistance. Maksudnya, you can imagine resistor as a like an obstacle for blood flow. So when blood flow through a blood vessel, there might be some blockage, or maybe the size of blood vessel, maybe it is narrow. So the narrowness can be represented by resistor, okay, resistance. And capacitor represent the vessel compliance. So compliance means the blood vessels, the properties of the blood vessel itself. So sometimes blood vessel can enlarge and can constrict. Okay, dia macam pipe getah, dia boleh mengembang, mengecut. Okay, depending on the pressure inside the blood vessel and also the properties of the pipe or the blood vessel. So vessel compliance basically represent the wall contraction or the stiffness of the blood vessel. And then also we can use inductor. So inductor represent the blood flow inertia, okay, some sort of inertial effect from the blood. And if you look at this figure, so you can represent like this is a portion of a heart, and you can add a resistor or electrical circuit to represent blood flow through some arteries. Okay, so we call this peripheral artery. Peripheral means artery yang terletak di tepi-tepi badan, like tangan, kaki. And for more complex electrical circuit, as shown here, so you can represent some other things like, for example, this capacitor dengan arrow ni, it represent the heart, okay, the heart compliance. So instead of vessel compliance, this represent the heart compliance. So you have the resistor, inductor. So diode also can be used to mimic the function of heart valve. Okay, so diode basically allows one direction flow only of electrical current. So if you use diode to represent blood flow, it acts like a valve. Okay, so valve functions as allowing only one directional flow. Okay, so this is an example, a simple example of Winkel-Cell model. So we call this 3 element because in this circuit we have resistor R, small r, resistor R, big R, and capacitor. So there are 3 elements only. So we call it 3 element Winkel-Cell model. So in Winkel-Cell model, we use current, electrical current to represent the blood flow, and the voltage U to represent blood pressure. So if you still remember EET, current is measured through a line, okay? A line in the circuit. while voltage is measured at the node. Okay. So at the node, we represent the voltage as pressure, and the line, the current, represent the blood flow. So similar to current, so blood flow will flow from high pressure to a lower pressure region. So same with current. So current will flow from high voltage to low voltage. Okay, so the derivation for this circuit, you get these two equation. So if you look at the first equation here, it's in ODE form. Okay, we have C duc over dt at the end here. So this is an ODE, but the arrangement is you need to rearrange back to make the ODE as the perkara rumus. Okay, so let's try to write this ODE in MATLAB. Okay, so as I explained yesterday, we need to write two functions in MATLAB. So the first function is the ODE MATLAB. Okay, so let's say we give the name exercise 1. Okay, so the function will accept t and y. Okay, and then we write the ODE. Okay, so the ODE given is I equals UC over R plus C duc dt. Okay, so we need to rearrange this to make the differential in front, okay, on the left. So because we define dy dt, so we need to start our ODE with dy dt. Okay, so dy dt will represent duc dt. Okay, so you still write dy dt. Okay, so after if you rearrange this, you will get duc dt equals I minus uc over R. Right, we have c in front, so we need to divide. Okay, so you get I over c and I over cr. So you just write this in code. Okay, so I over c minus. Okay, so this is uc, and our ODE also uc. So if you convert uc becomes y, then you need to remember that this is also y. Okay, so you just write y over R times c. Okay, so and then next thing is that we don't have the I, so I comes from the second equation here. Or later on we will see more detail about I. Okay, so you are given this parameters and I, the value, the function of I. So you just write the parameters. R equals 1. So ignore the unit, because usually the unit given to you will be consistent. Okay, so don't worry about converting the unit to SI unit. Okay, so the unit given is consistent already. So you just write the value without the unit, or maybe you can put a comment and give the unit just to make sure you know what the unit for each of the parameter. So we define already R and C. And then the next step is to define the current I. So current I is in the form of if else. So if t from 0 to ts, I equals this. If t from ts until t, I is 0. So you need to use if else. So before that, we need to define t and ts. So t is 0.8, ts equals 0.3. And you just write if t bigger or equal 0, and t less than ts, else if I equals I not times sine pi times t over ts, okay, squared. So squared, you can write squared. So we don't have I naught. So I think I naught is equals 1. I naught equals 1. And then else I equals 0. So you have everything here, I, C, R, okay, already defined, but we don't use R, small r. Okay, so that's it for function number 1. Then we can write function number 2, which is the solver. So solve exercise. So the first thing that you need is time span. So here it doesn't give, so maybe just write from 0 to 1, okay? And then why not? So why not given here? This one, assume you see at time 0 equals 0. So why not is 0. And then we solve, we write the ODE 15s. So we call the ODE function, and then write the time span, and write the initial condition. And then make sure you save using the name solve underscore exercise 1. Okay, so make sure you save your file in a directory that you know where you can find the file, okay? And then we can copy in the top part here and write in the command window and enter. Okay, so you get some result. So you get Y, and you get T. Relax, tutup mic. Okay, so so we managed to solve the ODE using MATLAB. So we can do some plotting. Okay, so here the question asks plot the aortic pressure waveform U. So instead of plotting UC, the question wants you to plot U. So if you look at previous slide, so second equation here already give for U. Okay, so U minus UC equals I times R. So what you need to do is you need to calculate U first before you can plot. So we know already Y big Y equals UC, okay, from this ODE. Okay, so actually we solve for UC. So we don't have U. So you need to find U. So find U using U minus UC equals I times R, IR. Okay, so you just rewrite the equation in terms of code. Okay, so U equals I times R plus Y. Okay, so UC is Y. Okay, so here we don't have I and R in this function, but we define I and R in the second function. So you cannot you cannot calculate U yet because you don't have I and R, because I and R is not defined in the first function, but it is defined here. So what you need to do is you need to just copy paste and define the parameter in the first function. So you define R. So we have R already. So we don't have I. So just copy for this part. Maybe here. Okay, I. But I depends on time. But we know that time is soft as T, big T. Okay, so we have conflicting variable here. We have also big T here. So what you need to do is you need to change this variable so that it is not the same. So maybe we can change this. Maybe use small t. Okay, to avoid similarity. Okay. So our time is t, becomes t. But to use this if else with t, so t here is having so many values. So you cannot simply use if else value, if else code to find I. So you need to add for loop. Okay? Okay, so you need to add for loop. So you define, let's say, j starting from 1 until length of t. So length of t means the end value of t. And then you read the time t. Say we define tt equals t j. So tj means, let's say, if j equals 1, so we read the time, the value of t, the value of t, the first value of t. Okay, so the first value is t equals 0. So when the for loop increase from 1 to 2, then it reads the second value of t, and so on until t, the end of t, length of t. Okay, so after you read the time, then you use if else to compare whether the time is in this range or not. So we change all this t becomes tt. Okay, this one also TT. Okay, I hope you understand this. And this is also used in your assignment 1A, okay? This concept. When you want to find the value of y and z for different value of x, okay? So you need to use for loop. I think there's a way without using for loop, but you can Google that, okay? How to use without using for loop. But because there are so many ways to do it, so my way, I will use for loop because I understand how to use for loop instead of without using for loop. Okay, it might be slightly difficult. Okay, okay, so we calculate already for I. Then we should get our U by solving this. And then we can plot based on the questions. So plot UT. So maybe you can just write plot time pretty U. Okay, so we get the plot. So let's see whether this code is correct or not. Okay, so we get this kind of graph. Okay, so graph dia nampak pelik macam apa ni, tak menarik pun. So actually because in this model that I shown in this example, it plots only for one heart cycle, okay, one heartbeat. So if you repeat this plot for maybe 20 heartbeats, then you will get this graph repeating 10 times. So dia akan nampak macam cantik sikit lah, okay. So because this is only for one heartbeat, so it looks like macam amda lah, tak penting dalam kehidupan. Okay, but actually we can plot this for many heartbeat, but I don't show it here because dia akan buat otak korang jam, malas lah. Okay, so the idea here is that you can do some analysis in this section of code, but don't worry, in your test tak ada kena kira macam ni. Ni pernah bagi dulu soalan dekat student, diorang tak tahu jawab langsung, diorang tahu jawab macam ni je. So diorang hilang separuh markah. So saya tak buat dah sebab taubat lah, okay? Student tak faham benda ni. So this is just for you to take it as an exercise, okay? So that maybe some of you maybe use it in your FYP to write ODE. So maybe you need to analyze something later on. So take it as a macam example ke exercise ke, okay? And then you can also calculate something else like IC equals C duc dt and IR UC over R. So let's try the simple one here, IR UC over R. So IR, so we can just write IR equals, so UC again, it's big Y divided by R. So here we don't have R, so we just copy R from the second function and paste it here. Okay, so you should get your IR and can plot. Okay, and then the next one is IC. So IC given as IC equals C duc dt. So this is slightly troublesome, okay? So here, because we found our y, so y is UC, but the equation wants you to find duc dt, means you need to differentiate y, okay? Kena buat differentiation on y. So what you need to do is you need to just write differentiation of UC, okay? So when you write diff UC, it will automatically differentiate UC. And then you can plot T, I see. Saya tak nak run sebab takut fail. Okay, so this is about how to do some analysis on your results. Okay. Okay, so let's continue with more example. Okay, so another example is commonly ODE is used to describe chemical reactions. So if you still remember chemistry SPM, you learn about like A plus X becomes something like carbon dioxide plus hydrogen kot, jadi something else, jadi acid lah apa. So you can describe that chemical process using ODE. Okay, so this is an example. Okay, so just example like step 1 of the reaction, A plus X becomes 2X. And then the second step, X plus some chemical Y becomes 2Y. And then step 3, Y over time will convert to B. Okay, so usually you will be given the equation for the chemical reaction. So like dA dt equals minus K1 A times X, dx dt, and so on. So here the ODE has 4 equations, okay? 4 ODE equation. So each ODE describes the chemical content, okay? The amount of chemical for each of the compounds, okay? A, X, Y, and B. Okay, so let's try to simulate this model. So let's try to write the code for this ODE in MATLAB. So as usual, you start with function of the ODE. So dy dt equals, maybe now we name it exercise number 2. Okay, so we write for A first, dA dt. So dy dt, because we still use dy dt, so we cannot use dA dt because we define it here, dy dt. But this is the first equation, so you simply write dy dt equation number 1. Okay, so A represent y1, okay, and then X represent y number 2, and Y represent y number 3, and B represent y number 4. Okay, so even though each of these ODE has different name, but make it the same name, okay, so that you don't confuse. Okay, so dy dt number 1 equals negative K1 times A. So A is y1, and then times X. So X is y2. The second one, dy dt number 2, which is dx dt, is K1 A times X. Minus K2 X times Y. Okay, and then the third one is dy dt y, and the big Y dt. So big Y is y number 3. So K2 times X times Y minus K3 times Y. And lastly, dB dt is dy dt number 4 is K3 times Y. Okay, so you already write the ODE, then we miss the parameters K1, K2, and K3. So we need to define the parameter first. So parameter can be found in the next slide. So K1 equals 0.1, K2 equals 0.1, and K3 equals 0.05. Okay, so I explained yesterday when we have more than one ODE, so you need to make it zero first. Okay. Apa dah betul ke? Okay, so make it zero. So because we have 4 ODE, so we zeros 4. Okay. Okay, so we should have everything needed in the function number 2. Now we can write the solver function. So solver function. So name it something that you can easily remember. So the first thing that you need is the time span. So time span given from 0 until 200. So you just write 0 until 200. And then we initialize, put the initial condition. So we have 4 initial conditions. So you can write them in square bracket, 4 values. Okay. So the first one is 5. And then 5 e to the power of minus 4. And third one is 1 e power minus 5. And lastly 0. And then you write your solver. In your solver, you need 3 things. So you call your ODE, the second function, and then write the t-span, and then write the initial condition. Okay, so the question asks you to plot y over y versus x. Okay, so let's solve this and see what are the results. Okay. So let's look at y. So we get 4 columns of y. Okay, so because we have 4 y just now. Okay, so 4 ODE. So the first column represent A, second column represent X, the third column represent big Y, and the fourth column represent B. So before we can analyze or plot something, it's better if you can split them or put some indicator so that you know what is each of the column means. Okay? So A equals Y, the first column. X represent Y, the second column. Pick Y, because we have Y already. So to avoid a similar variable, maybe you change it with YY. Okay? So it's the third column, and B is the last column. So we basically what we did here to make sure we know what each of the Y means. Then we can plot according to what the question wants. Okay, so plot y versus t. So plot y versus x. Okay, so what the question one is x axis represent x, y axis represent big Y. Okay, so let's try run the code. Okay, so you get some graph here. Okay, so you can try plot other things that you want. Okay, depending on what the question wants. Okay, so now by doing this example, you can already answer assignment 2A and assignment 2B. Okay, you should be able to do it. Okay, it's similar, but in that assignment, there are some questions that requires you to think, okay? Macam fikir apa benda nak kena buat, okay? Okay, so that's it for exercise 1 and 2. So let's look at the third model of ODE, which is the modeling of neural activation. Okay, so as I said yesterday, neuron is our urat saraf lah. Okay, so our urat saraf or neuron, basically contohnya otak nak suruh tangan kita bergerak, it will send a signals, okay, in the form of electrical signals. So badan kita ni ada electrical, okay, kita ni ada superpower lah sebenarnya. Okay, macam Pikachu tiba. Okay, so neural activation model is proposed by Alan Hodgkin and Andrew Huxley. So diorang dua ni, Hodgkin and Huxley, their model is very common in neuron, okay, neuron activation. So they won Nobel Prize in physiology and medicine for discovering the ionic mechanism involving the excitation of our neuron. Okay, so it involves some ionic, okay, ion. Okay, so what is this about? So first of all, this is our neuron in the brain. I think lupa dah ni dalam brain kot. So siapa yang belajar bio familiar lah dengan benda ni. So it is connected with muscle. Okay, tak adalah pendek macam ni je. Sebenarnya panjang, tapi sebab tak muat dalam gambar, dia pendek kan. Okay, so there are several other parts, okay, of the neuron cells. Tapi basically apa yang berlaku lah, dia bersambung dengan neuron yang lain. Kalau biasa tengok, ni bahasa Melayu lah, okay. Kalau biasa tengok iklan susu tepung untuk baby, dia kata minum susu tepung akan menyambungkan neuron-neuron dalam otak. Benda yang ujung-ujung ni, dia bersambung dengan neuron yang lebih kurang sama dengan hujung dia. So hujung dengan hujung tu dia akan hantar signal lah. Okay? Sebenarnya dia hantar chemical. Okay? So siapa yang tak bersambung otak dia tu, maksudnya neuron dia rosak lah kot. Okay? Selalunya pagi-pagi lah otak tak bersambung. So they propagate signal that is termed action potential. Okay, action potential ni macam voltage lah. Okay? Voltage macam dalam bateri tu. Okay, so the signals will come to the muscle and it cause the muscle to contract. Okay? Akan flex lah. Okay? Tapi tak semesti pada muscle lah. Tapi the most common example is to muscle. Okay? Senang yang orang dah kaji. Okay, so this is the common action potential, dia punya bentuk. So the membrane potential of the axon tadi, of the neurons, is measured in millivolt. So dia punya maximum value is about 40 millivolt. And the minimum is about -80. So bentuk dia macam ni. So dia ada depolarization and repolarization. So basically when your signals, when your neuron is activated, it is called depolarization. And then it will need some time to recover back. Okay? Maksudnya dia tak boleh keep on activated. Dia mesti rehat sekejap. So the process of resting or rehat is called repolarization. And until this resting potential lah, dia kena rehat sekejap neuron kita. Okay, tapi tempoh rehat dia sekejap lah, dalam 15 millisecond. Kalau kita rehat 2 jam, okay, lepas macam waktu kerja. Tapi muscle kita ataupun neuron kita rehat 15 millisecond. Okay, so in this neuron, there are changes in ionic concentration. So mostly sodium and potassium. So that's why kita kena makan garam. Maksudnya kita suka makan garam. Sebab badan kita ada garam. Okay? Dia macam kita memerlukan garam tanpa sedar. So garam ni walaupun dia mungkin menyebabkan penyakit juga, tapi dia penting untuk action potential ni. Okay, so ni dia punya fisiologi lah. Okay. So ada macam dekat membrane tu there will be some gates, okay? Macam ada laluan yang membenarkan ion tu masuk dan keluar. Okay, so bila dia tertutup, bila ion dekat luar ni lagi banyak dari yang dalam, so there will be some potential difference, okay? Perbezaan charge, okay? Because ion atas ni mungkin more positive compared to the ions inside. So more positive than the inside, then there will be some potential difference macam dalam circuits lah. So when there's a potential difference, then it will create current flow. Okay, so Alan Hodgkin and Huxley tadi, diorang ni tak tahulah makan susu tepung apa, dia jadi terlebih bijak. Okay, neuron dia bersambung. So they assume the neuron tadi using electrical circuit. Kita pun macam mana diorang ni nak belajar ABC pun tak faham. Okay, so they create this circuit out of nowhere, and then they do some experiment, and they prove that this circuit can validate their findings on giant axon of squid, okay? Sotong. So sotong yang kita makan tu pun dia ada axons semua tu. So they derive some equation, and then they find some parameters and some more equation, okay? And then some other people yang rajin, they write it in MATLAB code. Okay, so saya tak tunjuk lah kod ni sebab dia dah tulis. Okay. So they can plot the action potential, which is similar to the one previously. Sebenarnya memang graf yang sama pun. Guna tapi dia label je lain. Okay, so Hodgkin and Huxley, basically what they did with the equation is that they want to create a graph like this that is similar to the graph they obtained from their experiments. Okay, so by doing that, they won a Nobel Prize. So the reason why I explain this is I want you to appreciate our body. Sebenarnya ada electrical signals. They are so complex in our body, and it's not easy to describe how our body functions. Okay, especially like Hodgkin and Huxley, they describe only the neurons, okay, only one thing. But one thing only, the neuron, is so complicated. It has so many currents, ions, and then not describe the using circuits and so on. And what about other things like macam brain ke, mata, telinga and so on? It will be more complicated than a neuron, a single cell, okay, satu cell saja. So I just want you to appreciate benda tu di pagi Jumaat yang mulia ini. Okay, so that's it for today's lecture. And I hope you can try assignment 2A and 2B. And we have a test on week 7. As I explained just now. So we have test in week 7. Okay, so reminder again. So next week, maybe we will discuss assignment 1 that we have done that you should submit by this Sunday midnight. And maybe we also will discuss a bit about your assignment number 2. Okay, maybe when you try, tak faham something, so we will discuss a bit. And maybe next week we only have class on Thursday. Friday tak ada class. And then maybe submit this assignment So assignment two. So to make sure that you boleh study untuk test, so maybe submit assignment 2 on Wednesday 24th. Okay. So our test is 26. So submit by Wednesday, and on the 25th kita discuss how to answer the assignment. Okay, so that you can ready for the test in the following day. Okay, any question before we end this lecture? Okay, so if you don't have any question, maybe next week also I will discuss about your project and the group project that you submitted the name. So I hope you fix with the teams that you choose. Okay. Kalau nak tukar beritahu, jangan diam-diam tiba tukar. Macam tu saya baik kosong je yang tukar tu. Okay, so if you don't have any question, then inshallah we will meet again next week Thursday. Thank you. Assalamualaikum and goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.